Welcome to All Horse Racing All the Time. I'm your host, Al. In this video, 5 horse racing tips as they pertain to handicapping a race card. We'll get to that, but first, coffee. Excellent. Mary Lou's, the best coffee in town. There it is, folks. Not bad, nice and strong, smooth. Okay, 5 horse racing tips. Handicapping the race card. Do you have an approach when you handicap the race card? A system. Now here I'm going to give you 5 tips as they pertain to handicapping a card. And these tips pertain to each race. And I'm going to give it to you right down the line. And this is with the assumption that you have a system, things, different angles you look for when choosing your contenders. We'll have another video on that, tips for choosing the contenders. But this is, if you have your game down, you have a system for choosing contenders, now you want to handicap the card, and you want to do it the right way. You want to take care of things, get things in order, and be prepared to take on the races. And our tip number 1 is this. Handicap the card early. Give yourself sufficient time to look over the card and break down the races. You don't want to start when the racing starts, when the racing begins. You want to have an idea of who you like before you going in. You handicap the races in advance. Give yourself some hours to look over the card in advance. You don't want to go in cold. You might say, well, I got to the track late. I didn't look it over. Me and my friends decided to go to the track, and they're up to the second race already, so I don't have time to handicap in advance. Nonsense. What you do in this case, what I suggest you do is pass on the next couple of races and put some time into the following races so you know what to look for down the road instead of just going into each race, because there are things to consider and things that you can be prepared for when you handicap in advance. A big one is the multi-race plays. If you're going in and starting with the very first race, how can you realistically break down the following races accurately when, say, you get there and you have 17 minutes till post time to the next race? So you want to look the card over in advance. Give yourself some time, maybe the night before even. Put a few hours of work into it, or the morning before, and set yourself up. So that's tip number 1. Handicap the card in advance. Another reason you want to handicap the card in advance is because this way, if you have the card handicapped in advance early, then you know your contenders and you know your fringe contenders, and then you'll find out the scratches and changes, which usually come within a couple of hours from post time. And if there are scratches, even a single scratch can affect a race completely, change the whole pace scenario. What if it's one of your key contenders? What if it's a horse that you had planned to use in multi-race plays? One scratch can change everything. So you want to have that done in advance, preferably before the scratches and changes, and certainly in advance of the first race. You want to have the card broken down. You want to have an idea what's going on. So that's tip number 1 for handicapping the races, handicapping a card. Handicap in advance. Allow yourself time to go through the entire card. And now with that, as far as that card goes, okay, so now you're out there in advance. And we begin with the first race. And this process takes place for every race that you go through down the card. So you start with the first race. You want to look at find your throwout horses, the horses that realistically don't have a shot. And that means looking at least briefly through all the entries in the race, and realistically, you should be able to throw some of them out. Most races aren't so contentious that every horse is a contender. Sometimes you have a bunch like that. Sometimes there are 5, 6 horses in a race that realistically can win. What do you do with those? Save that for another time. You want to get the ones you can get rid of out of the way in advance. So find the ones that don't fit the race. Then you start looking at your real contenders and looking at the angles there. Okay, I got some notes on this. So get rid of your tosses. They're not going to be, they realistically have no shot. Maybe you want to have, list the contenders, the main contenders first. And if you have some fringe players that might have a shot for something, maybe in the exotics, maybe you want to add another column, maybe a B or a C column. So this way you have your main contenders and you're looking at those. And when you're looking at those contenders, I know this seems like a lot of work. What I'm going to suggest next is determine the realistic odds of each horse that you choose. Maybe you see an 8-to-1 there, 8-to-1 there, and you say, yeah, the odds of this one really should be about, I think it has a 1 in 4 chance of winning. And in that case, if you're getting 4-to-1 or better, you want to bet it to win. You say, hey, you hit just a few of those out of every few tries, you'll be ahead, even if you lose, which you probably will most of the time if the horse is 4-to-1. And that's just, I'm not just saying you look for 4-to-1 shots. It goes for anything. If you see a horse that's that you figure are 2-to-1 odds and on the board it's 3-to-1, make your own line in advance for your horses. Determine their probability of winning the race. An example today is I looked over the Aqueduct card. They have a big card today on a Saturday, and this could go for any day. And I saw one horse 8-to-1, and I think realistically the odds of this one are maybe 3-to-1 or somewhere in that range. So that's still, hopefully the horse doesn't, if it goes off at say 5-2 or 2-to-1, and I thought it was 3-to-1, that means I'm not really getting value on my entry because it's bet below where I thought its fair odds should be. So you make your own line. You determine this for each and every race. Maybe you find 3 contenders in that race. Maybe you find just one. But determine what the odds of that horse are winning. And part of that process is maybe you don't want to look at the morning line, or you could look at it, but make your own realistic line. Make your own realistic line. A lot of times, oftentimes, the morning line works to your favor if you know what you're doing, because the line maker, again, they make the morning line based on who they believe the public is going to be betting on and how much. So the morning line maker, it is a difficult job because they're not only handicapping the races, they're handicapping the public. Who do they think the public's going to win? So they're not choosing horses. The horse they make the favorite doesn't mean they automatically predict that horse to win. It means they believe, based on the horse's information and track record, be it the trainer, be it the jockey, maybe what it did in its last race. They're coming up with what they believe they're handicapping the public. So you want to make your own line, make your own morning line when you're looking over the races. Now, this is, again, a race at a time. You're looking at the race. You're in race 1. Whether you're in race 1 or race 2, you do this process for every single race. So now you have your contenders, and you're writing this stuff down. You're making notes that you can understand on the side, be it in a pad, maybe it's on a pad, maybe it's in a notebook, and you go down the line like that. So that's the third step there. The second is getting rid of your tosses for the race, and then you look over, you handicap the race with your main contenders, and you determine the odds that each of them have to win. No matter how many contenders you think have a shot to win in the race, you want to write them down. So maybe there's a fringe player in there. Maybe there's a B horse that you thought were odds of 4-to-1, and now you're getting 9-to-1 or 10-to-1 because the public is focusing on others. So In that case, maybe you want to throw a few bucks on it to win or place and collect something there. And keep an eye on the, okay? So you make your line, and at that point, the fourth step is, now you have your contenders, you want to grade the race. You want to grade the race, look it over. How strongly do I feel about this race? Does it offer opportunities there? I feel pretty, I think there might be an opportunity here with these. Maybe it's a exacta, maybe it's a win play show, maybe it's just a win bet, maybe it's a race that looks like a great race to use in multi-race plays. Does the race offer opportunity? Maybe you made a good line. You should be confident in your line. Maybe a race has a lot of first-time starters, and you're like, yeah, well, I based it on the trainers and the workouts, and I think this has a shot. But that race you might give a lower grade, maybe a C or C minus or C plus. Whereas other races, you might see a few standouts there that you really prefer over the favorites, or at least over the second favorite to use in exotics. Or maybe you have 2 or 3 horses that you think have a good shot to beat the ones that the public are going to bet the most money on. So maybe you'll give that race a B plus, maybe an A rating, because it offers opportunity. So you grade the races. You're writing, in essence, your own racing report. You're putting in the time. I know it sounds like a lot of time. There's no real way to rush through this. About 97% of horse players, they say, are losing players, and for any number of reasons. But most likely, a big reason is they're not putting in the prep work. They're cutting corners, and you'll put yourself ahead of vast majority of the crowd by taking these steps when looking over a race and going through it for each and every race on the card. Maybe you don't want to sit around and do that for, the 3 hours or whatever it's going to take you to handicap the card. So maybe you want to take a break. That's why I say give yourself time to handicap the race in advance the night before. Maybe you want to do 2 or 3 races, then take a break, do something else, and then come back fresh. And if it's a 9-race card, suddenly the thing's done. It doesn't seem like a pain in the neck to do, because you're giving yourself some breaks. For example, today I started the handicapping process for the big Aqueduct card today. And there are 10 races on the card, and I was actually doing it in real time on a live show this morning that wasn't planned, but I figured it might be something that would help handicappers while they're out there. It's something they can go to and take a look at, because they see I started this process at 3 in the morning, good night's sleep, got a cup of coffee, started at 3 in the morning in real time, starting with the first race of the card. And this show went till about 6:15. I gave some horse racing news in between here and there, and answered some questions in chat. But for the most part, I covered, out of those 3 hours and 15 minutes, I covered over 2 hours getting through the first seven or so races on the card, right? And that was it. So you see the work that was going involved there. I was just I was going along these steps and along the way. And then I came back to it later on, a couple hours later, after 8 o'clock, and finished up my breakdown of these races. And I'm not done with it yet. Okay, now I still have to move on to the next step, and that is this, step 5. Make sure I have this right. Okay, now you're going to go back. You have your notes for all the races on the card. Now you're going to go back to the card again, go back to the first race. You have your letter grades. You've seen the card. It's fresh in your mind. You know your big spots. You have your letter grades. You know the races where you spotted some juicy ones. Now you're going to go back to the card, starting with the first race, and you're going to look for your plays. What are the best opportunities here? Now it's the first race. Does a daily double look good? Is it a 2-year-old race that perhaps you're better off passing? Is it an exacta? Do you want to go into a pick 3? Do you see a couple of singles in the first 5 races where maybe you want to take on the pick 5? Depends what it is. Maybe it's a big a win place bet. Maybe it's a big place show bet. Maybe that's your only opportunity. Yeah, I love this horse, and I think I'm going to get a fair price on it. And if the price is there, this looks like the best play. I really don't want to mess around with the exotics with this one. So yeah, you go back and you go race by race, and you write down the plays that look good for you for each race, if any exist. I've said this once, I've said it a million times. There's no crime in passing on a race. Some races, a lot of races, are just unplayable. And if you want to make money consistently, you don't want to be tackling those, because you might be throwing money away, good money away, on races that you really don't feel that strongly about, that could be invested into another race to cover it the right way, maybe hammer your horse a little bit more. Okay, so save your money and choose your spots. So you're going to go through the card and you're going to write up your plays. So you go right down the line, and you find suggested plays if they exist. Now, even if you don't like a race, maybe you'll say pass, and you might want to think, well, if this situation arises, because things change during the course of the card, if things change, maybe the race that looked like a C minus turns suddenly into a B, or because of some changes. Maybe it's the odds. That's why you make your line. That's why you make your fair odds. You determine your own morning line. So you go through the races again, and now you have an idea of your plays. And that's what I do. I was making the racing report over 2 years, creating the racing report. And those of you who got the racing report, that's the process that goes into my selections. And a lot of times I'll tell you, play this one to win at such and such odds and above. It's because I determine a fair line for the horses. And it's not always the line that is the morning line. Again, I don't go by the morning line when making my suggestions. And a lot of you that have seen me play or seen me in action or gotten my reports in the past is like, hey, why is Al going with this horse? Or what, these odds, how can he choose him? It's because I looked the races over in advance and I saw things about the horse that appealed to me, that makes it a contender. And I also mentioned, hey, we'll play it to win, but only if you're getting these odds. Maybe sometimes there are some horses that are like 30 to 1 or 20 to 1. And I say, listen, play this horse at anything over 12 to 1, because I think it's still a bargain at 12 to 1. At 8, 9 to 1, or 7 to 1, it may not be the same bargain. And I tell you how to use it. And that's what you're going to do here when you go back through this card another time and you set up your plays. And if you set up your plays, maybe you at the end of this process, you may figure, out of these 9, 10 races, I only see 3 plays I really, really like. That should come as excellent news. If you can find 3 plays that you love, that you think you have a good chance to hit and you're going to get paid, and you have the discipline to lay off the other races, you'll come, if you're solid with your selections or the handicapping process, choosing live ones, the contenders, and you're getting the right price, you'll come out ahead in this game. The discipline, that's a huge part of it. And there's other things to talk about regarding that, discipline as well, but at least you'll have an idea ahead of time that, yeah, I'm waiting for this race. How many times have you seen other players, winning players, turn around and say, I'm just waiting for the 5th or 6th race. I'll be back for the 5th race. Why? Because that's the race that looks good, that they have a good chance to cash on. And you want to be the same way. You want to be one of those winning players too, who knows how to choose their spots and that begins with solid handicapping and preparation. Come out ahead. No crime, again, no crime in passing on a race. So just another little tidbit here. Okay, now here's the last step. It's really part of the fifth one again, because you may have to go tip 5 again, going through the card again. Now you're going to get scratches and changes. So this is part of step 5, tip 5 too, when handicapping a card. You're going to get the scratches and changes, and now you're going to see how it affects your races. You don't want to have to go back, and that's why it's important to take notes and also include the fringe players, because things could change. So now you're going to have to make your adjustments. Hopefully, most of the time, most races will not change. That's the good news. How many times? I think it was, it was Oaklawn yesterday. The first scratch came in the 7th race of the card. No scratches through the first 6. It was 1 in the 7th, 1 in the 8th, 2 in the 9th. Hopefully, that's the way it goes with you, and there's no major changes. But you have to go back and check for the scratches, and then readjust that phase again. Maybe you have to change some plays. Yeah, it seems like work, but in the long run, even in the short run, it'll be worth it, because you'll go in prepared, knowing what the heck is going on and what to look for. Then you can concentrate while the card is going off. You don't have to be scrambling trying to choose contenders. You know who you have, and you know how the race is stacked up, and you know what fair prices are. So now you can look at the board a little bit, and you can check the potential payouts to make sure you're getting the value that you deserve. And you can look into the daily double payouts. Maybe you're looking at place or show plays. So you could look at the pools and see if you're getting fair odds. So yeah, the 5 horse racing tips in regards to handicapping a race card. Do this, follow these tips, and I guarantee you your game will improve if you're not taking these steps already in your preparation. So again, starting off, 1, make sure you have enough time. Give yourself enough time, handicap the card in advance. Number 2, find your throwouts. Look through the entries on the card. Get rid of your throwouts there. And this way you can concentrate, really focus on the ones that have a chance. You see some with some really horrible speed figures, and there's usually some in there because some cards, the racetrack, they try and get people try and fill cards by asking owners, could you enter your horse in this race? You have a horse you could enter here. I'm trying to fill a card. Some of these cards, some of these horses are just plain throwouts. So, and the 3rd step, determine the fair odds. Don't want to miss anything. Determine the fair odds of the horse. Yeah, you're going to be making your own line, and you'll be thankful you did in the long run. And so you get rid of those. You determine the fair odds. What the odds of the ones that you like are. The favorite is 7 to 5 or whatever, and he looks weak at 7 to 5. But maybe favorite's 2 to 1. Maybe one is a 2 to 1 shot, and maybe you don't want to use them. So anyway, determine your fair odds, because the name of this game is getting value, because it's not only the odds you're concerned with, you're taking on the public, but right off the bat, the house gets a take, the takeout is there. So you want to have odds that you're getting paid and that you cover the takeout as well. And keep in mind that the win play show has the least takeouts. Exact is in that, or over 20%. So keep those takeouts in mind when you're determining your fair odds. How much is enough? What are the odds you need to come out ahead here and make money, turn a profit, and also cover the price out of the takeouts? And the next step is, you grade the race, and then you go back. In the fifth step, you want to go back and you want to check out the plays, put together plays. So you grade the races. That's 4. And step 5, you want to go back and you want to put together your plays, the plays for the race. And then, of course, check your scratches later. And then step 5, repeat. You may have to make some adjustments to your plays. Hopefully not too many. I hope this improves your game. If you're playing the races today, best of luck and bring it home. All the best, and talk with you soon. Thanks for watching.